And let me just add to your congratulations on Bill's retirement. You should have mentioned that higher up, I think, that he was a deputy spokesperson.
He was. I made reference to his work at this
Well,
very
I know,
podium.
yes, yeah, but it was like a very small reference.
He has done a lot in his career.
One might argue that there was Phil was actually the first person who got up and said that the Taliban were about to blow up the Bamyan Buddhas back in, pre 9/11 days, and made a big impression.
Here.
So congratulations to Phil
Yes,
on his
indeed.
retirement.
Indeed.
Speaking of Afghanistan, your first opening statement talked about the global women's economic security, and yet in the Secretary's speech, there was a one-word mention of Afghanistan and a one-sentence part of it. Why not highlight this a little bit more, considering you have expressed deep concern and reservations about the situation for women and girls in Afghanistan, and this would have seemed like a good opportunity to say something a little bit more than a clause.
So a couple things on this, Matt. The event this morning was to launch the U.S. strategy on global women's economic security. This is an agenda that, as I detailed at the top, has several proactive and affirmative elements. Unfortunately, our work when it comes to supporting the women and girls of Afghanistan right now is focused first and foremost on seeking to mitigate the harms that the Taliban has inflicted on the women and girls of Afghanistan. This is a strategy that applies to women and girls around the world, to developing countries alike. It is with a great degree of remorse that we say that women and girls in Afghanistan are unfortunately in a category unto their own. And there is one actor that is responsible for placing them in that category. That is the Taliban. The successive steps that the Taliban has taken over the course of recent months, first with the edict banning girls from receiving secondary education, most recently with the edict banning international NGOs from working with female humanitarian aid workers. These are steps that the Secretary has weighed in on in his own voice. These are actions that the Secretary, of course, is engaged on. The department as a whole is also engaged on them. As I mentioned yesterday at some length, we are working with our partners throughout the government and also with like-minded partners around the world to devise an appropriate set of consequences that register our condemnation for this outrageous edict on the part of the Taliban, while also protecting our status as the world's leading humanitarian provider for the people of Afghanistan. We were very quick to condemn this, as were a number of our allies and partners around the world. This happened on Christmas Eve. We did not let the day go by before we lent our voices to condemning this. We're now working on that policy response, and we'll have more to say at the appropriate time.
Okay, fine. But, going back to when the announcement was made, when the administration announced that it was going to withdraw, and then the actual withdrawal, you guys were saying all the time, we have leverage over the Taliban because they want international recognition. They want foreign investment. They want respectability in the world. And there were people, a lot of them, including me, from sitting right here.
That was my thought.
Yeah. So who said, what gives you any reason to think that they do? And now you still say that. But they have done absolutely the opposite, as they did back in the 1990s. What can you do? What are your plans if you really care if human rights are really like at the forefront of this administration's foreign policy agenda, and if you really care about Afghanistan post-withdrawal, what are you going to do?
Matt, a couple things. We have made no bones about the fact the Taliban have failed. They have either been unable or unwilling to live up to the commitments that they have made to the United States, but more importantly, to the people of Afghanistan.
Based on their past history, you should have known that.
Matt, look, we have never been under any illusions about the nature of the Taliban, what they seek, and how they seek to go about doing that. But it is not the fact that we have been baselessly claiming that the Taliban wants better relations with the rest of the world. The Taliban, including yesterday, the acting commerce minister publicly asked for countries around the world to invest in Afghanistan, to engage in foreign direct investment inside of Afghanistan. That is a clear signal as any that the Taliban seeks better relations with the rest of the world.
I'm sorry, that's just that what they are doing in terms of policies, not in terms of wishes. Yeah,
And
if
the
I
Taliban,
had my own country, I would like to have
the Taliban
foreign investment.
The Taliban may still be under the faulty illusion that they can have it both ways, that they can seek better relations with the world.
Well, then why don't you prove to them that they can't have it both ways?
So we have taken a series of steps so far. We are considering what additional steps we can take to make very clear to the Taliban precisely where the United States stands. But we're going to do this in a coordinated way with the rest of the world. So the Taliban continues to hear a unified chorus from the rest of the world, a chorus of condemnation, and a series of steps that are coordinated that make very clear where we stand.
Ned, on this point,
let me go to Nazira and then I'll come to you.
Thank you for that. I was there upstairs that Secretary Blinken was talking about Afghanistan. I expected to say something more, and I tried to ask questions, but I don't do anything against that protocol. I was scared because in the past I did. I was scared to not lose my job in the sensitive time that women is under a lot of pressure in Afghanistan. Number two, yesterday I asked you a question. Thank you very much. Always you answer my question. Taliban immediately show reaction, and the Taliban spokesperson Bilal Karimi said this morning that we don't care about United States. United States failed the war and we defeat them. We listen whatever our leader Mullah Akhund Hassan and Mullah Hibatullah said. In this situation, what is, you said we have another option. What will be next action or next action from the United States to defeat Taliban? They acting that they are very powerful, even more than United States. That's a tough situation.
So that is the very question that we are discussing internally and with our allies and partners. What that precise response to this latest affront to the rights of women and girls, but in this case to all of the people of Afghanistan, including and certainly the neediest within the country, what that response will look like. We want to make very clear where we stand on this. We're assessing the impacts that this edict has had and will have. We're discussing the options that will best allow us to maintain a strong, principled position as a single largest humanitarian donor to Afghanistan, while also doing what we can to prevent the humanitarian situation from deteriorating further as a result of the extraordinarily difficult operating environment the Taliban have created in Afghanistan for humanitarian providers in this case, but for all of the people of Afghanistan. It's women, it's girls, it's ethnic and religious minorities as well. We remain committed to helping to alleviate the suffering of the Afghan people. There is a tremendous amount of it. We are under no illusions about that either. And we're looking at those specific consequences that can be levied against the Taliban to register the condemnation that they have already heard from the rest of the world. The point I was making to Matt earlier, they cannot expect to have it both ways. They cannot expect to take these draconian, barbaric steps that prevent opportunity for women and girls, but more recently inflict such tremendous suffering on all of the people of Afghanistan and still expect to find a path to improved relations with the rest of the world. The Taliban may continue to harbor that faulty illusion. It is our goal with the response that we're developing internally and with our allies and partners to prove to them that will not be the case. Yes.
Thank you so much. Sir, depriving Afghan people from the basic rights is a big problem, but harboring the terrorist groups is another major concern, especially for the neighboring countries. What measures are being taken to take out the terrorist hideouts?
So this is a concern for us as well. When I made the point to Matt that the Taliban has proven itself unable or unwilling to fulfill the commitments it has made, this is certainly one of those commitments. In the U.S.-Taliban agreement, the Taliban made a commitment to see to it that international terrorists would not operate freely within Afghanistan. The United States has, in the operation that we undertook a few months ago, that eliminated the leader of al-Qaeda, who was living in Kabul, made very clear that the Taliban had not lived up to that commitment. But this is a shared concern we have. It is a concern we share with Afghanistan's neighbors, including Pakistan. In this case, Pakistan, of course, has suffered tremendous violence owing to the threats that have in many cases emanated from Afghanistan. So we're committed to working with partners, but President Biden also has a commitment to act unilaterally if and when necessary, as we did just a few months ago with Ayman al-Zawahiri, to take out threats that emerge in Afghanistan that potentially present a threat to the United States, to our allies, and to our interests.
The Taliban Pakistan threatens the top Pakistani political leadership, including Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Foreign Minister Bilal Bhutto Zardari. I hope you have seen that statement.
I have, and we condemn any threat of violence from any group, but certainly a threat of violence like this from a terrorist group like the TTP.
Sir, one last question. Pakistan is planning a massive operation against Taliban Pakistan, their hideouts in Pak-Afghan border areas. So what kind of assistance the United States can offer to help Pakistan in that kind of operation?
With this, I think it's important that we not lose sight of the bigger picture. Terrorism remains a scourge that has taken, as I said before, so many Pakistani, Afghans, and other innocent lives. The United States and Pakistan do indeed have a shared interest in ensuring that the Taliban live up to the commitments and that terrorist groups like ISIS-K, like the TTP, like al-Qaeda are no longer able to threaten regional security. But for questions regarding their plans, I would need to refer you to Pakistani authorities.